National mourning. The leader of their tribe is dead. Jerry Garcia, the man who led the Grateful Dead through 3 decades of adulation, died today in California at the age of 53. NBC's Bob Fall.
He was, someone said, the proverbial unmade bed, the rebellious child grown up, for whom the playing mattered more than the posing. Jerry Garcia, cultural icon and musical pioneer, bringing to rock and roll in the 60s something other musicians hadn't quite done.
They didn't really consider the possibilities of what bluegrass and country and jazz could mean in the context of rock and roll, and with the Grateful Dead, Garcia brought a lot of that.
Serious about bluegrass, also skilled on the banjo, he became for many the musical embodiment of the Haight-Ashbury counterculture.
You know, we were the first weird people that a lot of those people ever saw.
His own life was often chaos. Several times he nearly destroyed himself, ballooning to 300 pounds, smoking 3 packs a day, getting by on junk food and never exercising. 2 years ago, he cleaned up that act, even converted to health food. But drugs were never far away. This morning, his body was found at a drug treatment center.
The millions of fans that would call themselves Deadheads and still wear the tie-dyes and all, they're never going to get over this. I think it's going to be very much, this is the most tragic death since John Lennon.
His music made fans feel loose, free. The bond was extraordinary, their devotion almost cult-like. In the process, the Grateful Dead became one of the country's top concert draws, churning out 28 albums and grossing $327 million in the last 10 years, and it could have been more. But remarkably, Garcia let fans record concerts for free. Today, they mourned.
My whole life will be different now. He brought such joy to my life. I have to cry when I think that I'll never hear him play again.
Master guitarist, the Dead's heart and soul, he did not want to be adored, did not take himself seriously. If he had a philosophy, someone said, it probably was, if it's not fun, don't do it.
It closes another page on the book of the 60s.
In Touch of Grey, his only top 10 hit, Garcia sang, I will get by, I will survive. Now, his legacy, his music will. I will survive. Bob Fall, NBC News, Washington.
Garcia, lead guitarist of veteran rock band The Grateful Dead, has died at the age of 53. He was found dead at a drug and alcohol treatment facility at Forest Knolls in California.
It's hard to see how the Grateful Dead can survive without Jerry Garcia. He was increasingly portly and always modest, the antithesis of a commercial rock hero, but his guitar work was recognized as the band's strongest asset. The Grateful Dead have been a constant feature of the American music scene for more than a quarter of a century. During that time, they built up a huge repertoire of their own compositions, as well as drawing on blues, bluegrass and folk influences.
Essentially, what they were really about was the live experience. It was about an improvisational approach to music, and they would play for 5-6 hours, and the experience was really quasi-religious, and many of their fans treated them in that way.
That loyal core of followers, the so-called Deadheads, grew steadily just as the band grew from the San Francisco Bay scene to become a nationwide phenomenon. And Grateful Dead shows, always more important than their studio albums, developed into performances of lengthy and intricate improvisation. Fergus Nichol, BBC News.
Jerry Garcia was famous for his shaggy looks and tie-dyed t-shirts, but it was the music that made him and the Grateful Dead a symbol for the 1960s counterculture. Their music was a blend of psychedelic, folk, and rock. Garcia had a history of living hard. He had been in and out of treatment programs. This morning, he suffered a heart attack while undergoing treatment for drug abuse.
Happened 4:30 this morning. He's in rehab.
The phone has been ringing all day long at Toronto's Incredible Records. Jonathan Lipson owns the only official Grateful Dead store in Canada. He's also an old friend of Jerry Garcia.
I met him in 1970. I'd moved to California and I was living in a town called Stinson Beach. It was a town of 500 hippies, and the Grateful Dead and other groups, Jefferson Airplane, lived there.
Lipson says he lived about 6 houses away from Garcia.
I needed some money to pay the rent, and I walked down the road and There's Garcia and his lady, then Mountain Girl. And I went up to Mountain Girl and she said, "What's happening?" I said, "I'd like to be your gardener." And she said, "Okay."
Working for them meant everything from hanging out to horseback riding with the band. He sells over $100,000 worth of Grateful Dead merchandise each year to collectors and superfans called Deadheads who follow the band all over the world.
Unfortunately, I feel like I'm losing a lot of friends that are kicking in at 50 because of the abuse. Again, I don't know what happened to Garcia, but he wasn't the healthiest, and it takes a toll after a while.
Jerry Garcia was 53. For CBC Entertainment, I'm Leslie Wasserman.
It was not to make records. It was to play music live, to improvise, make every performance different.
He wanted to be a good musician, and you know, on the good days, you know, he was a great musician.
I don't care if my works survive, you know, or anything like that. I'm not really that attached to my own work. And in fact, that is sort of embarrassing in a way.
But millions are attached to Garcia's work. The Grateful Dead is the top live band in the United States, grossing $50 million last year. And their fans, the Deadheads, are legendary.
Oh, it's like the Gypsies. You know, we get together. It's a tribal stomp.
Though Garcia spent much of his life fighting drug abuse, that was not the only legacy of the 60s he kept alive.
That's something from the 1960s is hope, is love, is peace, is creativity. Those are wonderful ideals.
We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life, you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step.
From counterculture to mainstream, America is grateful to have had Jerry Garcia. John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
And that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather reporting for the CBS Evening News. Good night.
Get to sleep that night till the morning came around. Set out running, but I take my time. Friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home.
Today at a California rehab center. A Grateful Dead spokesman says the 53-year-old musician died in bed of a heart attack. He had battled drug addiction for years. Across the country, faithful Dead fans are mourning Garcia's loss. This is Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, where Garcia's band made its mark as one of the leaders of the 60s counterculture movement. Deadheads there say Garcia's spirit will not die with him.
You know how they say Bob Marley and John Lennon were kind of like prophets? Jerry Garcia was one too.
So to me, it feels like when I go into a Jerry show or something like that, it's just like going into a sermon or something like that, you know, swagger, blah, 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 so and so, you know, a good preacher, you know, it's all spiritual.
I don't feel like he's not here. He's just body's not here. Now his spirit's here. How can you'll never forget the guy. You never forget what's happened to you because you were there with it, you know. And he's deeply embedded in all of us, isn't he?
Tributes to Jerry Garcia are coming from the mainstream as well. The Republican governor of Massachusetts calls Garcia's death a loss to my generation and my children's. A U.S. senator says the news hit him like a kick in the stomach. What could account for such widespread grief? Well, Garcia's own words provide a possible answer. He once said, "We need magic and bliss and power, myth, celebration, and religion in our lives. Music is a good way to encapsulate a lot of it." Later, we'll have more on the